Now we have our 7:20 appointment with Chief Kingsbury on fire budgets. Sorry to be so late, Chief.
Well, good evening. Not really a lot to talk about on this budget, but have a administration budget.
Budget first, okay.
Yeah, just a $50 increase.
$50.
That's a big one.
Just so the people at home will know, the total budget for the current year is this is Fire Rescue Administration, is $139,162, and the request for next year is $139,312, so as Chief said, $150 increase. So,
To the budget and stuff.
Yeah.
yep.
The total budget's a 2.5% increase on the operations, but on the fire rescue operations, just a few line item increases. Equipment repair, let's trying to just keep up with the rising costs of repairs. Any of these are actually just to keep up with the costs. Our equipment is replacement equipment, another $500 increase. Radio maintenance, that's radio batteries for the portable radios and things of that nature. And the ambulance billing service, we try to keep that bumped up because if that's going up, that means revenue is going up.
Yeah, so that's good.
So, so it's about a $3,000 increase
Yeah.
in the total operations budget.
So like, so the total budget you're looking at, this picture is for people at home, it's about $850,000
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was $825 last year and stuff.
Right.
So. And most of that, I think, is mostly is in
Salary.
salaries,
Yeah.
right, for the
Exactly.
EMTs,
The
basically.
full-time and on-call personnel. Yeah.
On-call personnel, yep, yep, okay.
But Chief, how many ambulance runs are we doing now a year?
It varies a little bit, but typically it's between 550 and 600, you know, and then another,
So it's
600.
1.5 a day roughly.
Yeah. Our revenue last year was, we brought in $350,000 in reimbursement for, and then a portion of that goes to ambulance replacement and then their intercept service, so.
Yeah, and by the time we need to replace our ambulance, we should have a sufficient amount from
Money
that
tucked
Yes.
away.
to
Yeah.
Yeah,
purchase.
it's usually within $20,000 or $30,000 or so, but,
Yeah,
we're probably looking at that, not this next year.
next year. I knew that was coming up, because I know
Yeah.
you had brought it up before.
Yeah, and the plan is to, if our facility goes through, that there is space to keep our old ambulance as a reserve,
Yeah.
and then we'll get the new one, so we'll have a
That's a good
spare
idea.
ambulance, because it's a major inconvenience when that's out of service and you don't have a replacement, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's so busy, but,
Yeah.
so that's the plan.
Good.
Chief, you know, just looking maybe 5 years down the road, and I know a lot depends on what happens with the new station there, but do you anticipate we would have increase in number of firefighters full-time?
I would think
5 years down the
it's
road?
coming, yes, yeah. You know, it's hard to put a date on it, or, but it will come. And there are some avenues for funding, you know, the federal has a SAFER Act, which still fund positions for 2 years, you know, if you're successful in the grant application, and then you take, it's kind of like they had the COPS program years ago, you know, and you fund them for a portion, and then you pick it up at the end of the duration, so. But, you know, when the time comes, we could always pursue that.
Yeah.
What do you see as in a town like the town of Medfield, and how the population going to probably, with a slight increase over time there, eventually what we would need is a total number of firefighters on the different shifts?
Well, I think ideally, I mean, the ideal number in our situation would be 7. You know, we
7.
have 2 now, but you would have 4 firefighters and a shift officer.
Okay.
That way you'd staff 2 on the ambulance, 4 on an engine, and then you'd have an officer.
Yeah. I know, hold off as long as you hang in there
Yeah,
as
I
long as
mean,
you can, obviously, because it'll be a
what-
big expense.
You know, our staffing is, you know, it really depends on how we can maintain the on-call staff.
Sure.
I mean, I was fortunate, I put 4 on in July, so that was a big help for good candidates to
Good.
come in. So that's a big help, but,
Yeah.
you know, as that talent pool dries up, it forces your hand.
Sure it does, yeah. It's
You know,
If you had 7 per shift that way, how many total firefighters would you need then?
It would be 28. There's 4 shifts.
28?
Yeah.
Again, that's, we were talking pie in the sky. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, to go to the paramedic level now, we'd have to hire 8.
Yeah.
So 2 more shifts, so, and then you're talking, that's $500,000 to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's increased revenue returns because of running at that level of service and
Yeah.
things. So there are some offsets, not that it
Yeah.
would pay for it all, but there are some offsets.
How about the condition of the apparatus, looking down the road?
We're in good shape. Again, the engine that I'm holding off replacing, I can't fit something in the station, so that's, you know, it's a 1983 that was refurbished once already, but it makes no sense to try to build a truck to fit in that spot, because it's a disservice and it's a waste of money to try to do that, you know, because it wouldn't work.
Right.
Wow, so 1983, huh? So is it a pumper or whatever?
Yeah,
really?
yes, and we keep all our rescue stuff on it, so.
Yeah,
And it's like anything, you know, it's, you know, the more equipment you could, we don't have room on it to put more equipment, so we're kind of like limited in that
yeah, yeah.
stuff. But, you know, we make do with what we have, but,
Sure.
you know, I mean, a new facility would certainly help out with that situation.
30 years, huh?
I mean, we've specially built our ladder truck back in '96, you know, the overall length, we had to keep that to a minimum to fit in. The new squad that we built a couple of years ago, we had to make it fit in underneath the police station. So we've done it a few times, but with an engine, it just doesn't make sense.
Right,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
'cause it's,
Well, hopefully with the new station, that will solve a lot of those.
oh,
problems.
it'll solve all the problems, but, you
Like
know,
when
we
you
get
use
everything
Zorus.
under one roof, we have stuff scattered, and it's just,
Yeah.
you know, we're just operating on borrowed time, kind of.
Yeah. Well, and then when you do need to order new trucks, then I would assume you just order, you'd be able to order a standard size.
More
yeah.
standards, yeah.
Yeah,
more
as
st- yeah.
opposed to obviously trying to have to
you
get a
custom
customized
build
shrunk
it.
down truck.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So,
So, good.
Any other questions?
No, that's good.
See you in the morning.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
8 o'clock appointment, Board of Health.
Ah,
Sorry to keep you guys waiting.
sorry about that.
Jen Polinsky, 12 Scott Road. I'm a member of the Board of Health, along with Gabby Harrison.
Hi, I'm Gabby Harrison. I live at 234 Causeway and have lived in Medfield for 38 years. Happy to have done so. And it's my privilege to be a new member of the Board of Health, and thank you for hearing us tonight.
Good.
Both of you for volunteering.
Yeah.
So our budgets for the next fiscal year are level funded.
Okay.
We do have some costs pending the move of the Medfield Youth Outreach location to the school, replacing the cable television station.
Yeah, that is so good. That just is so good. I mean, what she is now is an embarrassment of the location, so that is a great move.
It makes sense.
Oh,
It makes
absolutely.
such exquisite sense.
We're really looking forward to having a new beginning there.
So good.
Excellent, yeah. So,
But pending the phone and rent amounts there, we're otherwise level funded for the next fiscal year.
So when does Medfield Youth Outreach move? When are they intending to move?
So it does depend somewhat on when the cable television station is able to successfully transition all their equipment.
Yep.
As the DT mentioned, I believe their lease is up in June.
Yeah, so it sounded like they were planning on leaving in June.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that there are a few sort of actual renovations or something
Oh,
that
sure.
needs to be done to accommodate things like privacy, telephones, and to just really make it an office appropriate for counseling and some
Sure.
of the work of Medfield Youth Outreach. And those are just some changes that will take a little bit of time
So
and
it's
do
the summertime
that.
type
Yep.
thing,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
transition.
Ideally.
Good.
Are you guys looking for still additional members that, on the board? Is there certain areas of expertise that you would more look for if we can, engineering? So maybe we can publicize that as well. There was still, anybody out there with an engineering background, your volunteer talent certainly would be appreciated by the Board of Health.
In
Would be
terms of
fantastic.
engineering, you're looking for either civil or environmental or?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. There are lots of plans that come through with water systems, drainage systems, different things like that, and it would really be helpful to have someone who's fluent in the language of civil engineers. There's also a lot of environmental issues that come across, for example, the beavers and the dams on Stop River and different
Yeah.
things like that. And it just, there's so much going on in that in those specialty areas that I
Sure,
think
yeah.
it's good to be up on even some of the legislation, some of
yeah.
the different things like that, and impact on towns and costs and things.
Mm.
Jennifer and I and the other members do the best we can, but it's certainly not our specialty area, so. And Nancy is wonderful about guiding us through all these things,
Yeah.
so.
You guys come in with beaver coats next year, we'll know the.
There's a big project going on down on Causeway Street now. You may have seen it, one of the bigger trees. Very enthusiastic
yes,
beavers working there right now.
Oh,
I
goodness.
just took a photo of that the other day. It looks
I
like
did
it's,
too. I have a gorgeous one.
It's gonna fall into the street or something if it
Mm.
does much more chewing there.
Incredible
Well,
what
he
they can
needs
do.
to start chewing from the other side, like the people who take down trees. so.
Actually, that's probably something the tree warden should take a look at, yeah. He's really chewed into
Chewed
that.
into
It's a
it, yeah.
good-sized
If
tree.
anyone wants to
Working
see it, I
fast.
brought a picture because it's so awesome.
Yeah. Usually they don't quit till they're done. And they're not the mascot of MIT for nothing.
Yeah,
So-
Nature's engineers.
yeah.
So I guess I had one question that was raised by what you had said about the fact that everything's level funded except for the cost of the move. And how are you gonna pay for the cost of the move then of the youth outreach?
So the cost of moving any equipment that we have, is that what you're asking about, rather than the
Well, I s-
renovations that might be
Or
needed?
even any renovations. that could
Renovations, I'm
build on
assuming,
it.
you can't use it the way it is, I gather, probably, so.
Hmm.
Probably, they're going to have to look at a capital budget request, I would think, to
Oh,
put some
okay.
money in
Just to set
to
aside little money, yeah.
renovate. Maybe, our new facilities manager started this week, so maybe
Ah,
we can
perfect.
ask him to take a look at that and work with the school business finance and operations manager. Because there's the other issue that they mentioned too about rent. Cable, Medfield TV currently is paying rent to the school for use of the space.
Oh,
So at Nancy's request, I've asked them, are they going to charge rent for outreach? And that's an issue that's under discussion within the school department. So
Ah.
there may have to be an adjustment if there's going to be a rental charge for the space.
I met with Martha Festa today, our warrant committee liaison. She's also the warrant committee liaison to the schools, I believe. So she's going to, she suggested that we put the budget together this way.
Okay.
And then she'll let us know how things are going. She's aware of it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
that capital budget request works just the same as if we budgeted an amount in the operation budget?
Well, it's a
Matter.
separate budget form that.
Yeah.
that
Yeah, is
we
that the
fill out.
capital
The
budget
capital
committee
budget committee
will
reviews
review
those
it.
capital budget
So either
requests.
way it
so-
works, is that it, or is this just more appropriate for a capital budget as opposed to an operational budget?
Well, the
There's some
capital
other
budget,
details.
usually it's anything over, what, 5,000?
Anywhere
or
5,000, it's
the
usually
life
a-
expectancy more than a year.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually a one-time expense like this.
Yeah.
Um,
Expense,
Yeah.
okay.
So who, does Board of Health put that in? Does the school put that in? Who's under?
The Board of Health will make a capital budget request.
If you don't do it that way, it looked like the Board of Health budget took a huge jump. And then,
Right, for a one-time
Get paid.
construction.
We're gonna get
Problem.
paid.
yes, yeah.
I know the school is probably looking at money, but it almost seems silly, the town taxing the town, and plus the,
Well,
uh,
in full disclosure.
well, but also the work that is being done by the outreach worker is serving the students of Medfield and the young people in Medfield that are in that same school, so I would hope there would be some.
There are a lot of, for example, Water and Sewer pays rent for their space in Town Hall as part of the enterprise fund. School department.
School department pays rent.
Pays rent to the Town Hall for use of their space, so there's a lot of that goes on. And that was suggested by the warrant committee, incidentally, many years ago.
So this is going to be a lively discussion about rent
Yes. It's
between dueling landlords.
Yeah.
You've opened a can of worms, so to speak.
So then if there is a rent charge, then how do we deal, what happens to the Board of Health budget? It's just,
We'd
Goes up and
we'd
then-
put through an amendment to the
Yeah.
budget to provide for a line item for rental.
So,
yikes.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Nancy.
Mr. DeSorga wishes to discuss transitioning longtime town employees.
Well, we talked about this before, and Jim O'Shaughnessy, who's on the warrant committee, had raised this issue, and I just think we need to keep this fresh into our minds, and we have, whether it's a Mike Sullivan that's been here for
40
40
years
years,
next month.
or it's a Bobby Kennedy, or it's Ken Feeney, who will be leaving us, that we work as hard as we can to make sure there's a transition of people coming along, so that the vast knowledge that these people have, which is incredible amount of knowledge, we don't lose that, and then suddenly we're 3 steps backwards and trying to catch up. That somehow we can transition, and I don't know how you do that, but somehow we can transition so that when that time comes, there's a smooth transition, and we're not going to be at a great loss because of the vast knowledge and service that, I think we're very fortunate here in Medfield, and I think we're unique in a number of ways, that a number of people that have stayed for such a long period of time, and we want to be able to tap into that knowledge and have a smooth transition. And I just think Jim O'Shaughnessy made a good point, that we really need to be working on that, and I agreed with him. So I don't know how we can do a better job at that, but I just wanted to raise that.
I think that's an excellent point. I think that we're blessed as a town government from the standpoint that we have a lot of long-term employees. That makes things work better, I think, in town. I think that what you need to do is you do need to plan for succession, and that's partly figuring out who the likely people in-house might be that would succeed. We don't have very large departments, so it's not like we have a lot I don't know that we can do a lot of succession planning, but with somebody like Mike, who has such vast knowledge of the budgeting process, I've suggested that Mike cross-train Chris so that Chris can know the budgeting process too, and I've asked Mike to write out actually what he does every year, so that there's a blueprint for someone that can come and see what all the steps are that Mike does every year, so that there's a
Chris has
document.
been picking up. She's actually done a lot of the budgeting the last few years for the individual departmental budgeting, so.
It was a side hobby when I wasn't doing the hospital stuff.
Yes. When she wants to get away from human resource problems or computer problems, she does budgeting. But, yeah, you're right, and we have been very lucky. For example, right now, we're going through a transition in the assessors department, because Stan Bergeron is leaving.
Stan's another one, right?
Yes, and fortunately, I think been able to get some very good applicants for that position.
Oh,
The
good.
assessor's about to start interviewing, and I think they'll be very satisfied with the caliber of the candidates.
But is there a way before Stan leaves and the new person goes in, that can be a period of mutual,
We do, we've scheduled,
That's what
yep,
they-
I've been working with the Board of Assessors, and right now, if we're following the timeline, we'll start interviews next week, and we'll have between a 4 and 5 week overlap between
so
the two.
that Stan will be there to work with the person?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think if necessary, Stan would be willing to come in from time to time
Yes.
if there's an issue that he
Yep.
needs, they need his assistance on.
Mhm.
Right.
But
It's the same thing you talked about too, because Ken's brought this up a couple of times, that Ken obviously is going to ensure too that as he gets ready to retire, that the transition is very smooth there. He, you know, he
Yeah.
talked many times that he isn't just going to run out the door and,
Yep.
and next week you're kind of stuck
And-
high and dry necessarily.
And we've started talking
Yeah.
about how that department should be looked at when Ken leaves. You
Yeah.
know, we've had some big changes there. You had Eddie Hinckley leave,
Yeah,
who was a walking encyclopedia of the water system.
although I still see him around. though, so.
We're still the tree warden.
Yeah, he still hasn't left,
Tree
he's still
warden.
here.
Yes, yes, he's still here.
But David O'Toole, who's worked for the town for an extended amount of time,
Yeah.
was promoted to be the foreman for the water department, so.
Excellent. Yeah, so things are
good.
coming along.
Mhm.
And we have an assistant foreman who's been with us for a few years, who's
Mhm.
also
Yeah.
working out very well, so,
Even of them, like a Bobby Kennedy Senior,
yes.
and others that,
Well, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. has really picked up a tremendous amount
Yeah.
over the past few years,
Oh,
just
yeah.
in terms of the landfill closure, the McCarthy Fields, the bleachers at the high school,
School,
the
yeah.
town garage,
And some nice
the
stuff.
road work they
Yeah.
do, bridge construction. He's really come a long way,
Yeah.
so I think Ken has done a good job in bringing along the people in his department.
Yeah.
He's very good about trying to promote from within
Yeah,
and train people from within, and
Yeah.
I think it's starting to show now. that
Sure.
We're starting to lose some of the older people.
yeah,
Our mechanic in the highway department
Yeah.
is very good.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
He's
yep, yeah.
helped a lot with the design of the mechanics phase of
And
the
stuff like
department,
that, yeah.
helping out, so. But there are, you're right, I'm getting up there and I'm not gonna be here forever.
Hmm.
Ken is talking about leaving in the near future. Those are probably the two biggest. We've actually, in the past year though, we've had the library director leave,
Yep.
we've had the park and rec director leave,
Yep.
Stan is now leaving, Eddie Hinckley's left.
Yeah,
So you are seeing a big transition already
yeah,
in the town,
yeah.
and it's gonna continue. So,
But things are working out nicely. I mean, we've got Sarah now, the new town planner, and that's
Sarah's worked
worked out
out very
very
well.
nicely.
Yep, you have a new building inspector, there's.
Yeah, so things have really kind of, I think there's some nice flow there,
Yes.
transitions there.
and I'm
you know?
hoping with all these new buildings, that facilities manager will work out into a position that's vastly needed. Again, that was
Yeah.
another suggestion from the warrant committee, that
Yeah.
we put on a facilities manager, so
Yeah.
we were able to use an energy grant to start, to try that out and see how it's
Sure.
gonna work out. And I think we've got a very good candidate for,
Yes.
it started this week.
So does the facilities manager have a desk, or does he have to work from home?
He actually has 2 desks.
Oh.
We have a desk in the town hall in the planning department,
Okay,
and then, yes, he has a desk down at the town garage.
makes sense.
Oh, as
yeah,
well.
good, yeah.
And Carlos from the IT department has set him up with computers and emails, addresses and whatnot, so he's digging right in.
Good.
is there a way maybe we can at some point invite him in to officially
Sure.
meet him and?
Yes.
Be nice to say hi,
Mhm.
yeah. I'd love
Should
to
probably
say
bring
hi.
in Park and Rec, just recently hired in the last few weeks. They brought Kevin Ryder, who was the former program director, has been hired as the new director of Park and Rec, so maybe good to have him in it for a formal meeting as well.
Yes.
Just
No,
to say hi.
The police chief would be civil service, so that's out of
Police
our-
chief
Should have
is-
been removed from civil service.
Yeah, it's not in civil service.
Yeah, there is a procedure for hiring, but the police department uniformed officers are still civil service, but about 12 years ago, the chief was removed, maybe 15 years ago. The chief's, I think when Dick Hurley came,
Yeah.
the position was removed from civil
So
service.
that's still under the control of the selectmen?
Correct.
Yes, yeah,
It's actually, it's a, yes.
yeah,
So that, I mean, there's two others that have been there a long, long time.
yes.
to-
And have mandatory retirement ages.
About 5 years or so.
For both police and fire?
65, yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a possibility you can file special legislation. The legislature doesn't like to pass it, but occasionally they do pass legislation. But before you do that, you'd have to talk to chiefs.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to torture him and make him stay for another.
I
10
think-
years.
I think they're very excited about the new public safety building, and I
Yeah,
think
they have to open it up, so.
will want to stay and see that through anyway, so that will probably take them close to mandatory retirement age.
So I don't know if that's something also to look at, how we transition, or is that something more outside of our realm?
Well,
When you,
that's-
when you transitioned police last time, from Chief Hurley, you did what's called an assessment center. And we actually hired an outside company to come in to run the hiring process for us. And it was excellent. I can't say enough about the process. It was very good.
And it ended up quite different than it started out.
Yes,
It
in
was
more
a
ways than one.
Very interesting process.
Yes. And so you typically, towns will do that for both police and fire.
Yeah,
Yes.
makes
yeah.
sense, yeah.
You were here when that went through.
I was,
as part of it,
yeah.
Were you?
No, I was just missed it, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a very fascinating process to watch.
Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
So it sounds like we're on the right course at least. Is there more we should be doing, or are we okay, or?
Everyone's
I
always
think,
thinking
I
about
think
it.
the personnel board is keeping a close eye on it. They participate in all of the hirings. Bob Conlon just participated in the Park and Rec hiring, sitting on that screening committee. Both Christine Connolly sat on the library director position. We did make an offer that was not accepted, and they're going through the process again, and Debbie Schuman's sitting in on that screening committee, so I think they're keeping an eye on that.
And you can never tell, for example, I was kidding Chris, I was reading an article, the town of Framingham has been through 5 library directors in the past 5 years. So even the best laid plans
Yeah,
can go astray if
Yeah.
you don't appoint the right people,
Yeah.
or for some reason they don't like the job and they move on.
yeah, oh, yeah.
So it's, personnel is tough, no matter
Yeah.
what. You can think you have the best plan laid out, and it can blow up in your
Sure,
face.
well, because you're dealing with people.
And
you just
I'd
never-
say we've been very lucky in the people we've been able to attract. Part of it, I think, is the town officials get along pretty well.
Mhm.
Part of it is we pay pretty good salaries. I'd say we're competitive in that regard.
Yeah,
And it's a nice working atmosphere. I think when people get here, you don't get a lot of bickering among department heads. They
Yeah.
work well together, and people enjoy that atmosphere.
sure they do, yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you just look at this table here, you've been here 27 years, Chris has been here 16,
16?
and I've been here 40, so
Yeah.
I guess we get along. And you go through department after department.
Same thing.
Most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
The police department is going to be going through a lot of changes in the next year or so,
Yeah.
and I think the chief is handling that very well.
Yeah.
Fire department probably is not going to be going through any changes. I think that'll be a few years.
It's a few years out, yeah.
So
Next item on our agenda is my desire to discuss the possibility of combining Medfield State Hospital master planning with town-wide master planning. There's just an opportunity, I think, here that we probably should take a look at and see whether there's anything to pursue with it. Because of the fact that the land disposition agreement for the state hospital provides that if we do a town-wide master plan, we get an extra 2.5% increase on the sharing formula, so that our share goes up 2.5%, I think is the figure. And so that, and we don't get that credit for doing the master plan for just the state hospital alone. And so that, I guess what I was thinking of and discussing with Mr. Massaro, who got my brain thinking on this, was that maybe there was some opportunity here where we have started this master planning with the hospital, but somehow to integrate it with the townwide master plan in order to basically harvest the benefit of that 2.5% money from the LDA that would give us that benefit.
I think we have 100,000.
Well, I think-
For master plan.
Yeah, I think there's some concerns on the timeline regarding that.
Yeah.
We
I
have to
think
change the timeline a lot.
the timeline changes, and one of the things that the LDA calls for is sale or disposition of the parcel. We get an additional 10% if we do that within 2 years. I'm concerned extending, a townwide master plan is a 3 to 4 year process. It's not a short process. You're asking people to put an incredible amount of time in. I think the least amount of time we saw on a master plan, when I just did a quick look today, was about 24 months. So even at 24 months,
It's not going to be fast enough.
I don't think it's fast enough to take a better advantage of the 10%. And the bigger issue with pushing this out longer is the liability and the cost we're incurring at the state hospital during that. I think that we talked last year about doing the townwide master plan. We talked about putting the article on the warrant, is that if we're going to do that, we can run them simultaneously. I don't think that anyone who does the hospital master plan is going to do it within a bubble. They're going to take into consideration the town as a whole. That's what we're going to be looking for in a firm. I'm just concerned about the liability and the timeline of taking that long to then lose the 10%.
Well, we certainly don't want to lose the 10%, but if there's
Yeah.
anything that we can do to grab the 2.5%, we certainly want to try to do that, I
Yep.
think. And if there's some savings from doing one master plan instead of two, but if the timing doesn't work out.
I think the timing would be my major concern, in my opinion.
There was a lot of discussion on town meeting floor last year when the hospital acquisition was discussed about the need for acting fairly quickly to determine the future use of it because of the carrying cost. I know that were several people, including the committee, that members that discussed that and cited the need for coming to a quick decision on the future use of the hospital. So when the costs start coming in, there's some funds to help pay for them.
Yeah.
Well, I think that discussion at town meeting is what pushed this board to put the redevelopment committee in place so quickly so that we could start moving on that.
Yeah.
So I think I am just concerned about the,
Well, if a townwide master plan takes at least 2 years, then I think that creates a real problem. I didn't realize it would have to take that long.
Well, the issue I have too, I'm concerned about, another issue too, is resources. I mean, we essentially have most of the folks in town that have been willing to volunteer and help out with projects in the past and things like that. Almost everyone is involved in the state hospital in one way or the other. If they're not on the committee, they're on an advisory board, and we're all, everyone's all in on that. So you just run out of bodies after a while. You know what I mean? If you all of a sudden you want to now start to work on a master plan for the town, and if you need to have a volunteer committee to help with that, I mean, we just don't have enough. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough people left in the town that are used to volunteering and that are willing to commit the time, and that's a concern there too, would be stretching our resources.
Yeah, I think
way too
it's-
thin. And you too. Once again, you and Sarah, what are you gonna do? You'd be out of your mind trying to do that.
I think if you think about it in terms of what the risks of waiting are, is the way I think you want to approach thinking about it. And, the risk of losing the 10%, the risk of the liability, the risk of holding on to it, the risk of the economy changing. We saw that a few years ago when all discussions on transfer and discussion of redevelopment at the state hospital stopped. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, is that the economy is doing well. We have a great development opportunity. Climate, if that's the way we choose to go, holding on to it, there's a risk. So I think if you're gonna hold the master planning process that's already started, we need to consider all of those risks and timelines.
Is there some way to have the townwide master plan, keep the hospital master plan going forward, and have the townwide master plan kind of accelerate in a similar project?
Sarah and I spent an extensive amount of time talking about how to do that, and I think you could do them simultaneously. A lot of the groundwork has been done. You could probably fast track it and try and get it done within the 2 years.
I mean, that would certainly be my goal, to get it done faster.
You can try, but I mean, it's a full RFP process, and you're gonna probably want a different committee. I don't think you're gonna wanna tax the existing committee,
That's the
so.
whole point, yeah.
You know, that's the other thing, is you've got an incredible committee in place. They've been meeting, they've got momentum, they've got enthusiasm. There's a lot of publicity about the site. There's energy about the site. I'm just worried I don't wanna put any of that on hold. We've had a pattern of doing that over the last 12 years. It was kind of hurry up and wait, and I just, you know, I don't wanna risk that as well, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
If I can make a couple comments?
Yes, Mr. Rosaro.
Just, Pete, I have to make a correction on the incentives and everything else. The 2.5% is for a marketing study. The master plan, the townwide master plan counts as an allowable cost.
No, it's 2.5.
Well, read it again, I mean, it's there. I mean, the 2.5% is based on a marketing study, because you'll remember at the time we thought perhaps we could get some advantage of the Jones-Lang LaSalle, because DCAM had made a comment that we thought we had already done that. But at any rate, the master plan was allowed as an allowable cost for the town. We tried to get it in as a allowable cost for the state hospital and DCAM.
I have it as I have it in my version, I have it as the town shall receive an additional 2.5% for a townwide master plan.
Oh, I'm
So-
sorry. Well, I guess I don't have the latest version.
Yeah, no.
Somebody can send me one.
Yeah, it is in there for the credit of
And
2.5%.
now, I would make a comment that the charter that you've given the master planning committee, the hospital master planning committee, requires them to look at the use of the surrounding properties and to take into account the town needs for affordable housing, the town needs for open space and everything else, which to me is pretty much of quite a start into the town master plan anyway, and requires all that kind of work. And I suggest you might be able to get creative and structure a contract. If you would have to go out for another RFP to add the townwide work to it, but you could structure a contract
You
in
could.
phases that would let you combine
Yep.
both the town master plan and the stuff that relates strictly to the hospital, do them simultaneously, and get credit for both activities at the same time.
As long as you completed that master plan before the 2 years, the selling issue.
Yeah, now,
It's
the other
selling
thing
it,
to keep
yeah.
in mind is when you talk about the selling issue and everything else, that incentive applies to however many acres you sell within that period, so, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Right,
it's still
everything's
gonna-
prorated.
You're still gonna be, yes, right, everything is prorated, so we're not talking about 10% on selling 100, unless you
Right,
sell
same as
100
the-
acres, you don't get 10, you get 10%
Right.
on what you sell, so.
Same as the
So when
2.5%.
you sit down and do an analysis of
Yeah.
what the hurry up gets you, you need to determine how much of it you're going to sell, how much will be sold, what the costs are. So the trade-off might be that you in fact, you lose the 10% over the first 2 years, but by doing a more intelligent plan and a more prudent plan in terms of taking the time to get it done right, you may in fact come out better at the far end, even losing that 10%. So, I mean, you need to look at these kinds of things. So my suggestion again would be to try to do it simultaneously if you can, possibly can.
Well, I'm certainly not in favor of doing anything to change what the committee's doing right now, the momentum, because if we give them, you know what I mean? We're gonna lose our momentum, and then we're gonna be slogging around here for a couple of years, and it's gonna cost us a lot of money. You know, it's one thing if Christine and them can figure out how they wanna get the master plan started for the town, that's fine, and if they think they can work it in, that's fine, but I wouldn't link that, you know, to what the state hospital, my recommendation, wouldn't link it at all to what the committee's doing at the state hospital. Leave them alone. You know, they're focused and they know what they're doing. And so we don't
And I
blow
agree,
it.
I'm concerned about
I don't want to,
pulling the rug out from under them. But, well, maybe if we could get some more information about how we could try to do this simultaneous track and see how that could play out. Mr. Herney?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do think that we should test the assumption that this is going to take a lot more money or a lot longer time to get a master plan. Secondly, I think we owe it to the town that voted to purchase the property to go back to the town and offer them an option. And all I have seen and heard from the meetings that I've gone to is development up there. And we haven't answered some of the very basic questions about the site itself. What are the costs of keeping some of those buildings, which probably should be kept? What are the costs of demolishing? What are the ongoing costs to the town of development? What are the costs of not developing? What are other sources of funding? You know, we've been decades getting hold of that property. And I don't think we should be in such a terrible haste to make profound decisions affecting the future of the town. I mean, a year or two is not very long in eternity. And it certainly is not a high percentage of the time we've put into getting this property. So, you know, I urge again that you make haste slowly on this, and that you give the town true options at any town meeting that's coming up. Because if you don't, you're going to have a struggle on the floor. And that's not by way of threat, but it's by way of informed promise. I think the people value, you know, we talk about in these requests for qualifications, you talk about the qualities that Medfield prizes and so forth. And some lip service is given to open space and the scenic views and so forth. But all I've heard, and I have paid attention, is that there's going to be development. I appreciate there should be some development up there, and there should be some use of the buildings that are going to be maintained. But we didn't chase away 440 units of housing in order to come up with several hundred units of housing up there, maybe 300, 400, who knows? You know, that's not what the people of Medfield voted for, I'm certain. And it certainly isn't what a number of us have put in years in beating back. So I am in no great haste to see, you know, work done at a cost to the town, which should be done by individuals in the town, and can be done by individuals in the town, both paid employees and volunteers. You know, the committee volunteered, and what I see happening now, maybe every 2 weeks a meeting, and those meetings, getting somebody to come in and talk for an hour to us. That's hardly going out doing the hard spade work that needs to be done in subcommittees, in liaison with existing town committees. You can have committees. I mean, I look at our own committee. We didn't meet for months on the negotiation committee. That's not the way to run things. So we need to pay very close attention to this. And as tiresome as it might be, and I know you have a lot before you, but I think you people have to, you're the executive body in town, and you're the ones who are going to have to bring this to town meeting and defend whatever comes up. So that RFQ never should have gone out at the time it went out, and it should have been much better framed than it was. So, you know, and I said that at the time. I'm not looking back and saying something now that I didn't say then. So, you know, it's wearisome on both sides of the table. Your side to hear all of this, and my side to have to say it. I'm frankly tired of chasing this hospital thing, but I'm not going to give it up. And if we need to have a fight on the floor, we'll have a fight on the floor.
John, how would you do differently than the slow deliberation or the prudent deliberation that you're talking about? What should be done differently? I heard you say meetings more than every 2 weeks, but other than that?
I think we have to determine the status of the site. We have to determine the status of the site. We have to really take a hard look at the number of buildings that are probably going to stay up. And
We'll figure out the current condition of the
the
building.
cost of the buildings that will
I
come
agree.
down.
I think we should
Okay.
do that.
We need to look at, come up with, just as we're putting an analysis here of development, what kind, how much, and so forth, we should be looking at another alternative, which is sort of minimal development and maximum open space. And what are the consequential costs to the town if we do that? Okay? And we should have those, both of those things. Those should be options that the town should see at a town meeting, right? We should look at the sources of potential cost mitigation. I talked to Congressman Kennedy when he was here. He said, well, there were no earmarks, but you might get some grants. Contact my office, okay? I talked to Senator Timothy. I said, you know, great, you got this to property. Now how can you help us out with paying some of the costs which are attended to it? And he didn't say, no way. He said, maybe on an environmental bond bill, right? I think that we should be looking at and there might be other foundations of conservation groups and so forth. We haven't even begun to look, frankly, for money other than from developers or from the taxpayers. Local taxpayers, that is. We should be looking at the abutters in the DCAM presently and DCR and say, here's what we're thinking of doing. What are you thinking of doing? How does this comport with what you're doing? We haven't done any of that. So there's so many things, Peter, I can go on with a number of other items, right? But there's so many things that we as a town can do, or we can, you as a committee can do by charging different parts of the town to respond to this. But just to go into a town meeting now and say, well, we're going to exhaust 100,000. We'll see what the 16th brings by way of replies on the RFQ. And then we'll see, you know, the implied promise of more money that was in the RFQ. See how that's going to comport. I mean, what we don't want to keep doing, $100,000 is not walking around money. It's 10 houses paying taxes for a full year in town, maybe 11 houses. Okay? It should be with reluctance that we go into town meeting and ask for more money before we do some of these basic things. And we should do them at the town's work ethic and not by saying, let's hire some more consultants and tag us with some more tax bills. It's late. I know you all want to go home.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff left to go on the agenda, Pete. You know, it's gonna be another 10
Okay.
o'clock night here. You know.
I would suggest that, John, that you express all of those issues with at the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee meetings, and,
Don't you worry, I already did, Pete. You went there, but I did last time.
well, we had to go to water and sewer that night.
You don't want to hear it. They want to get on with doing your own thing. But this is what the town voted for. The town voted to purchase the land and then trusted the selectmen to come back with a proposal.
Yeah, and we've pretty much asked that committee to study it and to report back to us.
You've attended a couple of those meetings, you know how to put to sites where any serious thought, never mind words, were given to anything except significant development.
I'm not sure that that's true. I think it's just,
Smacks of it, so it's just.
well, I mean, it's a process that,
About scenic view when the canoe launch and so forth, but nothing, no serious attention is paid to the option of fostering open space with limited development as against what kind of development we want.
ultimately, that's the town meeting's decision as to how they want to do it, how they want to balance it, and certainly we can have limited
Don't
development
give the
with
town
more.
options, they won't have a chance to vote one way or the other.
Yeah, well, I would hope that would be part of the process, that they would have those options, I think, and I'd like to see the town discuss that and make that decision.
We need definitive action, not just hope.
Well, I think we have to see what the process, how it works through, John, with that committee at this point, so. Anything else on master plan at this point?
Did I hear an action item about looking at the way to combine the two, or perhaps change the scope of work of the current
I think that
RFP?
we were,
You can't change the scope of the current RFP
No,
without
you'd have
going
to do a new
completely out.
RFP.
You're going out to do a new RFP, so I think that you need to have a conversation with the master planning committee if that's your
So
will.
we'll try to see what we can do there. But it's 9:20, it'd be great if we could move things along a bit. Instead of going over the state hospital for another couple of hours tonight. Be great.
well, but we should leave this with an action item as to what exactly we're going to do here, because did you want to have any say on how we proceed here?
Well, no, I think Christine, had one of the best ideas,
Yeah.
is trying to see what you can do to combine the two as best as possible.
Yeah,
and
that
come
makes
back
sense to
us
me,
of
yeah.
How we can do that.
Okay.
I'd
Right.
like to see.
Yeah, so that's our action item then.
That's all.
Perfect.
Very good, thank you, Chris. Superintendent Feeney requests the selectmen vote to award bid for 3 columbarium units to Watertown Engineering in the amount of $50,900.
Those are the boxes to put in the,
For the urns, yeah, for the.
for the
It's for the
cemetery.
cemetery, and it's,
Cemetery, yeah.
for the
It's-
cemetery, yeah.
it's for the
the,
cremated remains.
Cremation,
Think of
so
storage.
moved, Mr. Chairman.
I will second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Vote to authorize me to sign notification of employment pertaining to the police department.
You
This
had a
is,
couple-
This is
couple things in your,
An issue came up that the chairman needs to sign. We have an officer who's transferring to another department, and it's an interdepartmental civil service transfer, and when we filed for the transfer, it was determined that the original civil service paperwork had never been filed. Or it had been filed and has been lost by the state, but they do not have it, so they needed another form stating that they are civil service officers.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, for what they had, yeah, and the effective date of when.
Yes, and it happens to be the 2 employees who were appointed on the same night, who actually are both leaving the department.
Yeah. So we
Just a
need
coincidence,
vote-
yeah.
We just need a vote to
I move to authorize Selectman Peterson to sign the notification of employment pertaining to the 2 police officers so listed.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss topics for the next meeting. This is our annual calendar, I guess, that we've kind of been ignoring.
One of the things I'd like to just, I haven't been here, so I don't know what you had a discussion at the last time. Sarah and I would like to try and bring in the consultant on the 20th. I have an email into her, but I don't have a response yet, whether or not they can do an initial presentation of the housing production plan.
Okay. So that would be.
So we'd like to get that on the 20th. I believe you also may be meeting with the planning board that night. And the housing production plan actually requires a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the planning board. So we thought that might time up well.
We had some discussion today to see if we could bring not only the planning board, but also the Council of Aging with the issue of possible senior housing on the Hinckley lot.
Oh, so this may be
as
very
well.
timely.
And I think because the director, Roberta Lynch, is away, that the 20th also seemed to be a good time
Okay,
for that, so Mike had talked about that as well.
okay. So I'll have Sarah send you the most current draft of the housing production plan for you to review before the 20th.
Good.
And I'll let you know as soon as I find out whether or not they can come in to do it that night.
That all fits in well.
Mhm.
I was just looking at our annual calendar, and our annual calendar only went through December 31, so could we task you guys to come up with an annual calendar for the coming year? Pending, letter to be sent regarding Farm Street and Hardin Street Railroad track removal.
I just brought that up to see where Mike was at. Has that letter actually been sent? Do we know where we are? with
No.
that?
I don't know, I'd have to double check with him. I don't know.
No, it
Wait.
hasn't.
Hasn't been sent.
No.
We can get that, that's been
Yes.
hanging for a long time. Probably can't do anything until the spring anyhow, but we need to get that approval.
And
Figured while I was gone, that would have all been done.
Selectmen's reports, Mr. DeSorga.
Just quickly, I was kind of excited, which I've known about for a while, but the Historical Society has what they call the Mayflower gun. And they had some experts come in, and they actually, we made front page in the gun magazine that comes out called the Medfield Musket. And they feel that the Mayflower musket that we have, which actually was brought over by the Turners, and then the Turners came here to Medfield some 30 years later, is probably the oldest military weapon in the Western Hemisphere. Not only just the United States. It was probably made in the 1500s over in England, brought over, and they've done extensive study on that. So we have in our possession probably the oldest weapon in the Western Hemisphere in the Historical Society. So that was kind of exciting to see.
Better increase your insurance.
Maybe we need to sell it or something.
I was looking to see if we had an update on CSX going under the railroad crossing. I know they had promised us a go-ahead, and then they withdrew that, and
We're still waiting.
we're still waiting. So we don't have a date when the flag men are coming.
Not yet.
So they basically reneged. Again,
They clearly reneged. And we had asked, I know Congressman Kennedy's office to see if they could intervene and help, and they felt that because it's not a federal highway, there's not much they could do. So I was a little disappointed in that, because that's holding up the entire process there. And then just a couple of things, as it's snowing outside right now, just to remind people in town, if you have a fire hydrant near your house, if you could shovel that out, it's for your own safety as well as the people in your neighborhood, and it certainly would help out our fire department and highway department. And I know that there's senior citizens that are looking, Roberta at the center has a program, if there's volunteers willing to help seniors that are in their own home to do some shoveling, if you could get a hold of Roberta Lynch at the senior center, that'd be greatly appreciated. I received an email, we have a request from Gil Rogers that's looking to see, now that the state hospital property is ours, if it's okay for Wentworth Institute to send approximately 35 students up to the state hospital. They will not enter any buildings, and this is on January the 12th from about 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock under the guidance of Professor Simeo that we've been working with. So I'd like to let him know that that's okay with this board? If he goes up there?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
actually thought that the way that he wrote that email to us was that he was notifying us that he was going to do it rather than asking us. And it raised the question in my mind whether we should be establishing some sort of rules about that sort of issue with people having access to it. I mean, I think we have it open during the
They should come
day.
through something so we have an idea of who's up there.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good thing, just in general, for large groups like that especially, but, I mean, I think we need to think about it, I guess.
Well, I
is
think the
what
same
it
way
occurred to
as
me.
people want to put the signs out,
Mhm.
you know, to advertise, there should be something that comes before the
Sure.
board, so at least we know who's up there.
Yep.
At least we can let the police know, you know, that there's not, you know, just students wandering around, that, okay,
Yeah.
and we know it's the group from Wentworth or something. I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree.
And then just two other things, real quick. One, the town of Natick puts out, the Board of Selectmen sends out a newsletter that goes town-wide 4 times a year, and this is their winter newsletter. But what was interesting is they're in that Community Choice program, the Natick Community Choice Electric Supply Program, and it supplies a unique opportunity for residents and businesses to save money on their electric bill. All N-Star electric bills include separate pricing for the supply of electricity and the delivery of electricity, and the Community Choice Program involves the supply of electricity. It says the program, which will launch, just launched January 1, 2015, the native customers will pay a lower rate for electric supply under what they're currently paying on N-Star. There's also a greener option that's available for residents and industrial consumers that's less expensive than the N-Star rates, and that all N-Star basic service customers are automatically enrolled in the program, and customers who choose to not participate can opt out at any time. And all the billing and all services are continued by N-Star. I just thought that was kind of interesting. It was also just interesting, kind of the newsletter that Natick puts out.
Good
And
idea.
then, Pete, I think you had sent from Dave Stevenson, which I thought was very impressive, the calendar that Needham does.
Oh,
They
yes.
put out, and
Nice calendar.
it's by week, so you can see each day, not only what boards are meeting, but also what else is going on in town. And I think that just was very helpful
It would be very
Maybe
helpful to
something we
have
can
a
look into.
townwide calendar.
Now, the issue becomes, as Mark said, the lack of people, who exactly is going to do that. Maybe we can look in to see how Needham does that, but
There's a private party that's looking into doing it, a similar, a calendar for the town, but it hasn't happened yet. He was talking to the library director before she left about doing it with her.
Mhm.
because with really lack of a daily paper here in town, there's a lot of residents that they're doing their work, they're citizens, and you raise issues, whether it's the hospital or things that are going on, and sometimes you think everybody knows this, or the issue of the police and fire station. I had a couple of residents that I think were informed residents that had no clue that there was gonna be an issue coming up in the Springtown meeting dealing with police and fire station. So even though I think the fire department and police have done a good job trying to have open houses, a lot of the information does not filter out into the average citizen.
No, it does not, unfortunately.
So that's something I think we need to kind of look at. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and I think too, what we're always gonna run into the problem with is obviously we wanna get as much information out, get people informed, but I think we're gonna run into the law of diminishing returns though as we go along. I mean, a lot of people, don't have the time or don't take the time to
Yeah.
wanna know what's going on. So you find that we might eventually get to the point where we're spending a lot of effort and time to keep the 1% of the population, even better informed what's going on. Just a lot of people just don't have any, and they're just not as concerned about town government. I mean, they're just not, or what's going on. They pay their taxes, and as long as the school system's good, and the kids get a good education, that's all they care about. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, they're too busy with their lives, but it's a hard thing, public participation, right? Getting more people involved. Just a note, just a quick thing, just for this week too, is first Thursday start up again, so Zulu Gallery, my monthly plug this Thursday, will be open. They're gonna be a little nippy, I think, Thursday night. I don't think the roof deck will be open. I don't think the roof deck will be open. Might have to wait another couple of months. So that's it, Pete.
I just mentioned that all three of us went to the Water and Sewer Committee meeting before Christmas and helped them get information that they needed. After that meeting was over, I went to the tail end of the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee meeting and unfortunately missed the presentation by the consultant who had come in from Montana to present about having a cultural center. And that's it for me. Anything in the...
I believe they're meeting tomorrow night as well.
They do,
Is that
yeah.
good?
Yep.
Then that's down at the Highway Garage.
Yeah,
Yes,
first and third Wednesdays of the month. I think that's their regular schedule, I think, 7 o'clock, yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, our water and sewer superintendent is, water and sewer chairman is now superintendent in Natick.
I saw that on his
okay.
email, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He used to be the town engineer and he got moved up, so congratulations to Jeremy.
Yeah, he went from Framingham, he was in Framingham.
Oh, Framingham over to Natick. Oh, okay.
Oh, he's in
yeah.
Natick now.
Yes.
That's right, I forgot.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Jeremy?
Jeremy.
Jeremy, yeah,
Jeremy
okay.
Marset, yeah.
Good. Well, that's funny. I noticed that he was the superintendent, but I didn't notice that he changed towns.
Yes, yeah.
Good.
Well, he was with water and sewer, I think, in Framingham.
He was the town engineer.
He was the town engineer, then he was promoted to deputy director of DPW. And that's what he's been the last several years, and then moved over to Natick. So I got Jim Snyder and I lost Jeremy.
So anything in the informational that you guys want to report on to residents?
I just wanted to mention again that we did, our facilities energy manager started Monday, and
That's great.
he's really jumped on the job, and I think he'll do quite a good job. And Al Peterson, who's the school facilities manager, is a big help too.
Yeah.
He's very supportive. Other than that, I think everyone survived the holidays in good form.
You did?
Get back to it. We're glad to have Chris back.
Yes.
It's good to be back.
Yes.
Extended vacation, so to speak. And the news is good, so thrilled about that. That's
I just raised that, Chris said there was no action with CSX on the train. You don't know when they're coming back?
No. Well, Paul Millett should be at the Water and Sewer Board meeting tomorrow night, so hopefully we'll get an update on that. We probably will be having some discussion of whether to put our article on the town warrant for the solar photovoltaic facility at the treatment plant. So I know Bob McDonald's quite interested in that. Oh, incidentally, Bob McDonald told me that the Medfield wastewater treatment plant is going to receive an award from the EPA at the end of January for the operation and maintenance of their exemplary operation maintenance of their plant. And it's going to be done in Boston, I think, at some conference meeting. And they were recommended by Mass DEP for the award.
Oh,
So
yeah, nice
it's
for him.
quite a turnaround since he's been on board.
Yeah, he's done a nice job.
Yes.
Great job.
Yeah.
Can you keep us informed so that we can make sure he gets credit from us on that too?
Sure, yeah.
There'll be DEP will send us a full press release and photos from the event
Nice.
Okay.
publication, so.
That was another good move. We recruited
I
him.
am too.
So,
Yeah. Because
Thank you, everybody.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.